You're listening to the Doctor Is In podcast, brought to you by MartinClinic.com. During the episode, the doctors share a lot of information. As awesome as the info may be, it is not intended to diagnose, cure, treat, or prevent any disease. It's strictly for informational purposes.
Well, good morning, everyone. I'm going to finish off yesterday just for a second, and I'm going to bring you to a story this morning, and I think you're going to enjoy it, okay? We're going to do a little bit of teaching this morning, but let me just finish off. Yesterday, okay, there were 5 major medications that can cause problems with your memory later on, okay? And we touched really on 3 of them yesterday, how they affect your memory, antacids. So for anything from Prilosec to Nexium to Tums and Rolaids, right over the counter. If you're using that all the time, antacids. 2, statin drugs, famous for what they lower your cholesterol, all right, your LDL. So what? You don't want that. Anyway, we talked about that yesterday. And thirdly, we talked about sleeping pills and anti-anxiety medication. And I understand you want to have a good sleep. I get it. Okay, I get it. We have thousands and thousands of people using our cortisol formula because it's probably the best sleep aid that you can get, in my opinion. Okay, I found over the years, and I've been around a long time. And, you know, melatonin and things like that, I love if they work. The problem is, okay, just generally, by the way, your body makes melatonin. I don't know if you knew that or not. Melatonin is not a supplement. It can be, but your body makes it from the sun. Get out in the sun, okay? We finally get some nice weather here in Northern Ontario. Oh, did I take it? I was out till 8 o'clock last night, like from early in the morning, right after I finished the program yesterday, outside. I never came in. And I mean that. It was such a beautiful day, okay? And then what we didn't talk about are antidepressants. So people, again, what I was saying yesterday, they were meant to be taken for, if you watch them come out, I watched antidepressants come out when they hit the market in the 1970s. And the pharmaceutical companies, you know, were warned by the FDA at the time. And they had a warning on the medication, and the pharmacist would tell you these are meant to be to get you through a bad, dark period and then stop using them. And yet I know people that have been on antidepressants for 20, 30 years. They never stop taking them. Because as soon as they try and come off, they didn't feel good. And they didn't try and work their way off it anyways. I don't want to get into whether you come off your medication, but I just want to tell you, those meds were never meant to last for a long time. They were to get you through a dark period. That's it. That's all. And now they've been abused, in my opinion. Okay? What does it do in the long run? Makes you much more susceptible to dementia. And then the 5th one are antispasmodics. Now, ladies, you would know this for people that have trouble with their bladder. You know, or interstitial cystitis, they often put you on an antispasmodic. You know, the bladder is a muscle, and they want you to, you know, for those that have trouble with leakage, for example, often put on an antispasmodic. People that have muscle pain or whatever, put on an antispasmodic. The problem was that down the road, it can lead to dementia. Those are the 5 that I wanted to talk about. Okay, so let me shift gears. We're going to talk about saturated fat. I am going to show you the difference between saturated fat and unsaturated fat. Okay? And I'm going to do a little bit of a teaching on that this morning, so I want you to, because there was a study that came out, I flagged it a couple of days ago from the, this comes out of British Medical Journal, the BMJ, okay, the British Medical Journal. Here's the headline. Full fat dairy reduces your risk of 3 things they put. And these are all part of metabolic syndrome. So when we talk about metabolic syndrome, 88% of the population, 88% of the population are metabolically unwell, according to the CDC, the Center for Disease Control. 88, that means only 12% don't have. If you're part of this 12%, that are metabolically very well, good for you. And this is what we're aiming for. The number one thing at the Martin Clinic, is metabolic syndrome. It's why we're the one-trick pony. It's why we're always talking about food, because the only way you can fix metabolic syndrome is not with medication. Medications might control it, like diabetes is part of metabolic syndrome. Pre-diabetes is part of metabolic syndrome. High blood pressure is part of metabolic syndrome. Non-alcoholic fatty liver is part of metabolic syndrome. Uric acid is part of metabolic syndrome. Belly fat is part of metabolic syndrome. Obesity is part of metabolic syndrome. Okay? And guys, COVID is part of metabolic syndrome. We've talked about that ad nauseum, because the key is not the virus, right? You guys know that. The key is not the virus. The key is you. The key is not a mask. The key is you. The key is not washing your hands. I'm not telling you not to do it. I'm not even telling you not to wear a mask. The key is you. It's whether you have metabolic syndrome or not. Because the only people that really get sick, and we showed you a study a couple of weeks ago, remember, newsflash. If you have metabolic syndrome, you're not even producing the antibodies. That was a headline that came out of Britain. This is another headline that's coming out of Britain. The British Medical Journal said, full fat dairy, okay? Full fat dairy reduces your risk of metabolic syndrome, especially diabetes, high blood pressure, and obesity. Now I'm going to show you what that is. What is saturated fat? They said for years, and they still say it today, especially my generation, saturated fat is bad for you. Now, what's the difference between saturated fat and unsaturated fat? Well, saturated fat is very simple. Saturated fat, okay, it doesn't change at room temperature, okay? Cheese. I'm just going to read the label to you. So read your labels, okay? This is a block of cheese, okay? Marble cheese, okay? It has in one little serving, which is, I hate these grams, 30 grams, approximately 1¼ inches, if you take a chunk off of this, okay? There's 30 milligrams of cholesterol. Oh, Dr. Martin, that can't be good for me. Yes, it is. You need it, okay? And then they tell you about saturated fat. You have in that little 1¼ inches, or how many grams again? 30 grams. You have 6 grams of saturated fat, okay? You have 6 grams in cheese. Why does Dr. Martin, listen to what I'm going to say. Why does Dr. Martin love saturated fat? Why does he love eggs, meat, and cheese? Because of saturated fat. Saturated fat, okay, is good for you. I'm going to prove it to you today. But this is the difference. You say, well, Dr. Martin, why do you like this and not milk? Well, if you can get full fat milk, which is really cream, half and half, right? That's what comes out of a cow, guys. You don't get skim milk out of a cow. True or false? You don't get skim milk out of a cow. But ask anybody of my generation, what's better for you? Skim milk or cream? You know what they'll say? Skim milk, 99-1. Yeah, because they look at cream and they think of clogging of the arteries. They look at cheese and they go, oh, and just have a few. Okay, so this is saturated fat. You want saturated fat. Okay, and I'm going to tell you why in a minute. Now, this here, see olive oil? This is a good olive oil, and I love olive oil. You know why I love olive oil? Because it has oleic acid in it, the same that's in bacon. But this is an unsaturated fat. This is not saturated. Because at room temperature, it's in a liquid. Got it? This is olive oil. At room temperature, it's liquid. This is another saturated fat. This is why everybody says, oh, don't have coconut oil. I just brought out coconut oil. It's at room temperature, it's solid. It's saturated. Your brain is made up of saturated fat. Now, we're having steaks tonight, okay? So we're just defrosting them. I want to tell you, okay, straight from the butcher, they're pretty food, why you want to eat. There's lots of fat. I always pick and choose as much as I can the saturated fat. Eat that too. You know when I eat a steak, I eat that. Oh, is it ever good when you heat it up? You fry it up. When you put it on the barbecue, oh, it's so good for you. So at room temperature, if it's a liquid, it's unsaturated. At room temperature, if it's solid, it's saturated. You got it? So steak, right? Coconut oil, butter. Is butter at room temperature solid? Yes. Butter is so good for you. Cheese is so good for you. This is why I chose the Reset. The Reset is 100% saturated fat. Eggs, meat, and cheese. Yeah, this is why it's so good for you. Okay, and now I'm going to explain it. Yesterday we talked about memory. Guys, you know where you have the most fat? In all of your body, comparatively. Your brain. You know what fat-free eating has done for our society? It has increased metabolic syndrome through the roof. In the 1940s, less than 7% of the population had metabolic syndrome in North America. Less than 10%. It was 7% in the 1940s. It's 88% in the year 2020. 88%. Remember what I said about metabolic syndrome? High blood pressure, uric acid. Where does uric acid come from? Sugar. The new smoking. This is why you want saturated fat. And look, there's some, I don't like vegetable oils, but remember olive is a fruit. It's a fruit oil. Okay? And it's all right, but olive oil is good for you, but it's not as good as a steak. You ladies and your chicken and salad. Oh, Doc, I put olive oil on my salad. Well, that's one good thing in eating a salad. At least you put oil and vinegar on it, right? Balsamic vinegar. I love that. It's good for you. Olive oil is good for you. I prefer bacon, okay? I like olive oil. But bacon has a lot of saturated fat. It also has oleic acid, okay? The same as olive oil. But you look at bacon, right? Just look at it. And that's what scares people skinny. It scares them because they see all the fat in bacon. And I tell you, if you did a survey in your hometown, 99% would say limit that. Don't eat a lot of bacon. It's not good for you. Well, it's not true. It's not true. It's good for you. So I want to give you several reasons, okay? We talked about the brain. Your brain is made up of so think of that. You need to replace that. Now, here's what saturated fat does more than anything else in your body. Because, okay, let me stick to the brain for a second. Your brain is made up of saturated fat DHA oil, okay? Fat. Eskimos don't get heart disease. They don't. They die when they eat McDonald's, okay? They die because the polar bears eat them, but they don't die from the same diseases we do. There's a lot of tribes around the world that when they live off the land and they live off of what they can grow and what they can kill, that's what they live on. Still, even in the 21st century, there's still tribes all over the world. And when they analyze them, they're very healthy. Now they don't, they die because they get infection or whatever. And then they don't have the medication. So medications can save your life. I'm not against that. That's when you should take a medication, when it's saving your life. I got no problem with that. But I'm talking about something that's preventable, metabolic syndrome and Alzheimer's. Remember what they call Alzheimer's? What was one of their first names of Alzheimer's? Type 3 diabetes. It's metabolic syndrome, guys. It's not that complicated. It's food. It's food. You need saturated fat. And one of the biggest benefits, let me just say this and you guys will get it because you guys are smart. Now let me say this. Why do you want to eat coconut oil? Why do you want to have a steak? Why do you want to eat cheese? Why do you want to eat eggs? Why do you want to avoid milk? Unless it's cream, unless it's full fat, okay? Because when you eat this, you're elevating. When you eat meat, especially, not chicken. Chicken. Eat the skin. Eat the skin. Saturated fat. Why? Because the biggest thing that it does, number one thing that it does, it elevates your HDL. Do you got it? You can't elevate HDL without eggs, meat, or cheese. And HDL is good cholesterol. Now remember what I said. You guys could write a book. Cholesterol is only found in the animal kingdom. Eggs, meat, cheese. And when I say meat, I mean fish too. Okay? So just understand that. It's only found, cholesterol is only found in the animal kingdom. And if you got, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of you have sent me your blood work. And I will make a little comment when you do. I am looking for 2 lipids. I want to know what your HDL is, and I want to know what your triglycerides are. That is the most important thing, because I can tell you, just by looking at that, I don't need to look at anything else. I don't need to look at your sugars. I don't need to look at your liver enzymes. I don't need to look at your kidneys. I don't have to look at your brain. I don't have to look at any of those things. You show me those 2 things. Show me HDL and show me your triglycerides, and I'll tell you whether you have metabolic syndrome or not. I don't need to see anything else. Because if you don't have enough HDL, you have metabolic syndrome. And the only way to get HDL to go up is to eat saturated fat. Guys, there's a method to my madness. Oh, Dr. Martin, you're crazy. I know. I get it. Why do you think we're calling this book The Diet Your Doctor Will Not Share With You? They won't share it with you because they still believe the lie that saturated fat is no good for you. It'll elevate your cholesterol. I know that's what you want. You need saturated fat to elevate your HDL. What is that? Your good cholesterol. Why is that important? Because it's FedEx. It's Canada Post. It's Purolator. It's UPS. on your highways of your blood vessels. The higher your HDL, the more trucks you have on the highways of your blood vessels taking out your triglycerides. Now you know this, and again, you know me. This is, because somebody said to me, I get a kick out of it. I mean it. And you know what? I welcome your comments. I do. But I scroll down, okay, and after the show, and I get people, I bug them. You're too simplistic, somebody said. I'm sorry. This is me. I'm 68. You're not going to change me. It's too late. Okay? It's too late. It's the way I am. And one lady said, Dr. Martin, you repeat everything. I know. I'm sorry, guys. But I hate being lied to. So when you listen to this, especially now, we have a whole generation of people, especially the young generation. If it's got eyeballs, I won't eat it. And cows are damaging the environment because they fart. If you don't have saturated fat, you cannot elevate your cholesterol, your HDL, your good cholesterol. You need saturated fat. So I can tell people in 5 seconds they got low HDL. I said, well, you have metabolic syndrome and you're in trouble. If you got low HDL, you're on the Titanic. And the iceberg is just up the ocean there. And I happen to be the SS Californian who all day long was telling the Titanic on Morse code, get the H off the route you're on. There's major icebergs ahead. That's a true story. And the person who was on the Titanic, who was listening to the Morse code, finally told the guy at 11 o'clock at night, true story, stop and shut up. I'm going to party. And within a short period of time, they hit that iceberg and 1,600 and change died. You're on the Titanic if you got low HDL. You know what it means? You're not eating enough saturated fat. It's as simple as that. That's the equation. The only way you can get your HDL up is with saturated fat. Olive oil, good for you, but it doesn't elevate your saturated fat because the dangerous fat in your blood vessels is not HDL. It's not even LDL. It's triglycerides, 3 fats. And 3 fats, triglycerides, 3 fats, okay? They're made up from sugar. It's the new smoking. It's worse than smoking. Now, what doctor would there be anywhere that would tell you, you know what? Like they used to. Like my dad used to tell his patients, smoke. It'll clear your lungs out. For advertisement, 4 out of 5 doctors choose Camels. I'm old enough to remember those ads. 4 out of 5 doctors choose Camels. Now, you ain't going to get 4 out of 5 doctors today telling you to choose Camels. Every doctor agrees. Smoking ain't good for you. Well, the new smoking is sugar, and especially high fructose corn syrup. It'll kill you, folks. It'll kill you. So do you see where I come from? And I think I'm going to have to continue this series because I'm never going to stop talking to you about it. Saturated fat. It does 7 or 8 other things, by the way. And we'll cover that. But I needed to talk to you about what it does for your HDL. What does it do for your HDL? It whoop. And the higher your HDL, the more trucks you have on the highways of your blood vessels to take away your triglycerides. Okay? Triglycerides. The 3 fats. but triglycerides come from crappy carbs. So you need animal products, guys. This is why I'm so consistent in that. When people used to say, well, don't eat steak, Dr. Martin, because, you can have a steak once in a while. Do you know how many people crave steak and don't eat it? You ladies, you and your chicken and salad. You're not a rabbit. You're a carnivore. This is why God gave you these teeth here. I know. I get into trouble all the time because people don't, they don't like me saying that, but too bad, so sad. That's what I used to say to my kids. Too bad, so sad, you're dad. I don't want to hear your cranky story. Anyway, guys, I love you. Okay, so share this with your friends. Remember your circle of influence. I've always teach you that. Okay, I have a circle of influence. Okay, in Canada and the United States and around the world to some extent. Okay, and you have a circle of influence, your family, friends, or whatever, and okay, pass that around. And they might buy it and they might not, but at least give them the information. Okay, love you guys and see you tomorrow, Lord willing. Love you.
You've reached the end of another Doctor is In podcast with your hosts, Dr. Martin Jr. and Sr. Be sure to catch our next episode, and thanks for listening.